Most people walk through life seeing only fragments, moments, events, and details that appear disconnected. They focus on the obvious, the surface, the immediate. But if you are among the rare few, your perception operates differently. You see the invisible threads that connect everything. You notice the patterns others dismiss as coincidence. To you, nothing is random, nothing is meaningless. Every gesture, every silence, every turn of events carries a weight, a rhythm, a hidden logic waiting to be uncovered. This gift is both a blessing and a burden. On one hand, it allows you to read situations, people, and possibilities with astonishing clarity. On the other, it can make you feel alienated from those who cannot comprehend what you perceive so effortlessly. Imagine sitting in a room full of people where everyone is engaged in small talk. They laugh, they exchange pleasantries, they nod to one another as if everything is perfectly ordinary. But you, in that same moment, notice subtle changes in tone, fleeting glances, a certain tightness in someone's smile. Where others see harmless chatter, you sense tension, unspoken rivalry, and hidden motives. You are not guessing. You are observing. You are connecting dots invisible to those around you. This ability to see patterns is not confined to people. It extends to the very fabric of life itself. When most look at history, they see isolated events. You, however, notice cycles, empires rising and falling in rhythms that echo one another. You see how collective psychology repeats itself, how greed, fear, and ambition move societies like tides. This perspective allows you to predict outcomes, not because of magic, but because you recognize that human behavior rarely escapes its patterns. In conversations, you often find yourself finishing people's sentences in your mind, not out of impatience, but because you've already detected the pattern of their thought. In problem solving, you see solutions long before others even articulate the problem, because your mind is already mapping connections. In creativity, you draw from seemingly unrelated fields, philosophy, art, science, mythology, and weave them together into something new. To others, your leaps of thought that appear mysterious, even genius. To you, they are natural, the inevitable result of connecting what others overlook. But such perception is not without its weight. There are times when the constant recognition of patterns feels like a flood, overwhelming and relentless. You can't simply turn it off. You walk into a room and instantly notice the architecture of relationships. You read between the lines of every story. You sense shifts in energy that others remain blind to. This intensity can make everyday interactions feel exhausting, because while others are enjoying the surface, you are navigating the depths. Many who see patterns others miss often describe a sense of de-age view. Not because they've been in that exact situation before, but because the unfolding resembles something they've already seen elsewhere. It might be a conversation that mirrors an older one, a conflict that echoes another, or a decision that feels like a replay of history. Your mind recognizes these echoes, and the recognition sharpens your awareness. Seeing patterns also grants you foresight. While most people live reactive lives, responding only to what is directly in front of them, you anticipate, you see where actions will lead, how behaviors will spiral, and how dynamics will evolve. This foresight is often misunderstood as cynicism or even arrogance. But you know it is not negativity. It is clarity. You see the seeds of outcomes long before they bloom. This gift also enhances your relationship with art, philosophy, and nature. In a piece of music, You don't just hear notes, you feel the underlying structure, the symmetry, the rise and fall that mirrors life itself. In literature, you don't just follow characters, you notice archetypes, recurring motifs, symbolic layers that speak to something timeless. In nature, you notice fractals in leaves, spirals in shells, and how rivers carve the same shapes as lightning in the sky. The same laws repeat at every scale, and you find beauty in their repetition. For some, this gift makes them teachers, philosophers, inventors, or artists. For others, it creates an internal richness that may never fully be expressed outwardly, but still shapes how they live and choose. It is why you may find it difficult to explain your perspective to others. You attempt to share your insights, but they dismiss it. Not because you are wrong, but because their perception simply does not stretch far enough to see what you see. Sometimes this alienation drives people with rare minds into solitude. They would rather be alone with their perceptions than dilute them for the comfort of the crowd. Yet, in solitude, their pattern, seeing, deepens. They connect inner and outer worlds, weaving meaning into existence itself. This solitude does not feel empty. It feels alive because within it, connections grow even more vivid. And when you do share your vision with those who can understand, the impact is profound. People may feel as if you have articulated something they always sensed, but could never name. Your ability to reveal hidden patterns gives them clarity, direction, and even healing. It shows them that life is not random chaos, but a tapestry of interconnected meaning. The truth is, to see patterns others miss is to live on the edge between vision and burden, between clarity and isolation. It is to carry the weight of insight that most cannot hold, and to walk a path where few can follow. For most people, silence is uncomfortable. It is the empty space they rush to fill with chatter, noise, or distraction. A quiet room feels heavy to them, and they scramble for words to break the tension. But for you, silence is not empty. It is alive. It is a presence, a language all its own. It speaks truths that words cannot capture, truths that echo deeper than the loudest voices. Where others hear nothing, you hear everything. Silence reveals more than speech. In a conversation, the pauses, the hesitations, the spaces between words often say more than the sentences themselves. A person's silence after a question can carry weight, a confession of doubt, a shield of defensiveness, or a cry for understanding. The unsaid often rings louder than the spoken. You know this because you have learned to listen with more than your ears. You listen with your awareness, your intuition, your whole being. When you sit in silence, you are not bored or restless. You are attentive. You notice the subtle sounds that others ignore, the faint hum of electricity, the rhythm of your own breath, the distant echo of life beyond the walls. You notice how silence allows thoughts to rise that would never emerge in constant noise. Ideas, insights, and connections seem to surface naturally when the world grows quiet. Silence becomes the canvas upon which your mind paints its clearest pictures. This relationship with silence also extends to how you interact with others. While most people compete to speak, eager to be heard, you find power in restraint. You don't need to dominate the air with words, because you know silence often commands more authority than speech. When you pause before responding, when you allow the weight of silence to hang, people lean in. They pay attention. They realize that what you are about to say carries significance. In this way, silence becomes a tool a form of unspoken communication that exerts influence without force. Yet silence is not just external, it is internal. Within yourself, silence is where you meet the deepest parts of your being. It is where you confront your fears, your doubts, your truths. Many people avoid silence because they are terrified of what they might find in it. They fear the inner voice that questions, that remembers, that reveals. But you are not afraid. You embrace it. You sit with your silence, and in doing so, you gain strength. You cultivate an inner calm that is unshakable, a stillness that remains steady no matter how chaotic the outer world becomes. This is why silence often makes others uncomfortable when they are with you. They feel the weight of your quiet. They sense that in your silence, nothing is hidden from your awareness. They cannot distract you with noise, cannot mask themselves with empty words. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back their own unspoken truths. Some are drawn to this, craving the rare experience of being truly seen, without judgment. Others flee from it, unable to withstand the discomfort of exposure. Silence is also where you draw your wisdom. While the world races forward in noise and distraction, you step back and listen. In silence, you notice the patterns beneath chaos, the order beneath confusion. In silence, you recognize what matters and what is meaningless. This ability to withdraw into stillness allows you to make decisions from clarity rather than impulse. You don't just react, you respond, and that difference changes everything. Even in creativity, silence plays its role. Writers, artists, thinkers, and visionaries have long known that silence is the birthplace of inspiration. It is in silence that ideas gestate, that imagination stirs, that visions form. You understand this instinctively. You do not fear the empty page, the quiet room, or the blank canvas, because you know they are not empty at all. They are invitations. Silence whispers, nudges, and eventually reveals what wants to emerge. In relationships, silence becomes a test of depth. Anyone can enjoy noise together, but only a few can share silence without unease. You value the kind of connection where silence is not awkward, but nourishing, where two people can sit without speaking and still feel understood. This is intimacy beyond words, a meeting of souls rather than egos. Such moments reveal more about the bond than hours of conversation ever could. But silence is not always gentle. At times, it confronts you with truths you would rather avoid. It shows you your loneliness, your wounds, your mortality. Many turn away at this point, drowning themselves in distraction to escape. Yet you remain. You endure the silence, even when it pierces, and in that endurance you grow. You discover that silence not only reveals pain, it also heals it. It allows wounds to breathe, grief to move, and wisdom to settle. Silence speaks louder than words because it carries the weight of authenticity. Words can lie, but silence rarely does. Words can be manipulated, but silence lays bare what is real. In silence, masks slip, pretenses dissolve, and what remains is essence. You live with this awareness, and it changes how you navigate the world. You no longer chase constants and noise or cling to shallow conversations. You allow silence to guide you, to shape you, to reveal what others cannot see. Most people move through life guided by invisible scripts. They inherit beliefs, traditions, and assumptions without ever asking where they came from or why they exist. These truths are handed down from authority figures, from culture, from society, and people accept them because questioning them feels dangerous. To question is to risk exile, rejection, or ridicule. But you Your mind refuses to obey these silent rules. You cannot simply swallow a belief because others say it is true. You have to see for yourself. You have to test it, dismantle it, and uncover what lies beneath. From a young age, you may have sensed the cracks in the so-called truths others clung to. When teachers, parents, or leaders declared something as absolute, something inside you stirred. Instead of comfort, you felt curiosity. Instead of submission, you felt the urge to probe deeper. Why is it this way? Who benefits from this belief? What if the opposite were true? This line of questioning set you apart because while most people equated obedience with safety, you equated truth with freedom. This questioning is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is not about rejecting everything blindly. It is about discernment. A mind like yours recognizes that truth is not static. It evolves, it deepens, it shifts with context and perspective. To accept without questioning is to live in chains, but to question is to reclaim your sovereignty. You know that every system, every ideology, every cultural norm carries both wisdom and illusion. Your task is not to destroy, but to separate the real from the false. This way of thinking often makes others uncomfortable. They label you as difficult, contrarian, or even dangerous. And in a way, you are dangerous to the structures that rely on blind obedience. You challenge authority not because you crave chaos, but because you refuse to live in deception. You notice how often people parrot beliefs. They have never examined how entire communities repeat mantras without knowing the origin. To you, this blind acceptance feels like a sleepwalk. You are awake, and being awake means you cannot help but see. Questioning accepted truths also sharpens your ability to detect hypocrisy. You notice when people preach one thing and live another. You see how society praises values like honesty, kindness, and justice, yet often rewards deception, cruelty, and exploitation. This dissonance does not escape you. It fuels your need to dig deeper. If something is called truth, but in practice it enslaves or deceives, then you refuse to accept it at face value. The cost of this gift is isolation. Many people fear those who ask too many questions. They see your probing as an attack because it shakes the foundations of their comfortable illusions. When you question what others accept as truth, you risk being misunderstood, judged, or cast out. Yet, paradoxically, this very isolation strengthens you. It forces you to rely on your inner compass rather than external validation. It teaches you to endure loneliness in exchange for clarity. This questioning spirit gives you a kind of vision others lack. While the majority see only what is presented, you peer behind the curtain. You understand that history is written by the victors, that media shapes narratives for agendas, that even language itself carries bias. To you, nothing is neutral. Everything must be examined, decoded, and placed in context. You recognize how belief systems shape behavior, how ideologies mold identity, and how power hides itself beneath the guise of truth. Yet questioning is not only about dismantling lies, it is also about uncovering deeper truths. When you strip away illusions, you do not stop at emptiness. You search for what endures, what is timeless, what withstands scrutiny. This is why your mind resonates with philosophy, spirituality, and wisdom traditions that invite inquiry rather than demand blind obedience. You are drawn to teachers who encourage questioning, not those who demand silence. In practical life, this trait becomes a source of innovation. Inventors, artists, leaders, and thinkers who changed the course of history all shared this same refusal to accept the world as it was presented. They asked questions no one dared to ask. What if time is relative? What if disease is caused not by curses, but by microbes? What if freedom is possible even under oppression? These questions broke paradigms, and your mind carries that same potential. Still, there is a price. The constant questioning can feel heavy, even exhausting. At times you may envy those who accept life at face value, who follow rules without resistance, who seem content in their unquestioned reality. But you cannot go back. Once you see the cracks, you cannot pretend they are whole. Once you taste truth, you cannot swallow lies. This is why your journey is not about comfort. It is about authenticity. You may lose approval, but you gain clarity. You may face resistance, but you gain freedom. And while the majority live confined within the boundaries of accepted truths, you walk beyond them, searching, questioning, and discovering what most will never dare. To see depth is both a gift and a weight. To carry depth means you perceive life in layers that most people never touch. Where others are satisfied with appearances, you crave substance. Where others swim comfortably on the surface, you dive into the depths. This tendency allows you to understand people, experiences, and ideas in ways that are profound, but it also sets you apart in ways that can feel lonely. Conversations that others find fulfilling often leave you restless. Small talk about the weather, gossip about neighbors, or empty exchanges of pleasantries do not feed you. You long for discussions that dig into the heart of things, conversations about purpose, meaning, existence, human nature. You want to know what drives a person, what fears they hide, what truths they avoid. But many resist such depth. They look at you with unease, as if you are asking for too much, as if your hunger for substance is excessive. And so, you learn to stay silent, to withhold the questions that burn inside you, to carry your depth quietly. In relationships, this depth can create both intimacy and distance. When you love, you do not love lightly. You invest fully, seeking connection that transcends the physical and the superficial. You want a meeting of souls, not just a meeting of bodies. You want a partner who can sit with silence, who can explore the mysteries of life with you, who does not retreat when the conversation turns inward and raw. But such connections are rare. More often, your depth intimidates. It demands honesty, vulnerability, and presence, qualities many are unwilling to offer. And so, despite your capacity for profound connection, you often find yourself walking alone. Your depth also extends to your perception of the world itself. You notice the sorrow hidden behind smiles, the longing behind laughter, the fear behind anger. To you, emotions are never random. They are signals, layers of truth waiting to be understood. You see the fragility of human beings, the masks they wear, the battles they fight silently. This perception fills you with empathy, but it also makes you sensitive to pain. You cannot turn away from suffering the way others do. You carry it, absorb it, reflect on it, and it lingers inside you long after the moment has passed. This sensitivity can feel overwhelming. Crowds, noise, and superficial environments drain you, not because you are weak, but because your depth is constantly processing more than others can see. You are aware of energies, moods, and undercurrents that most dismiss. This makes the world louder, heavier, more demanding. At times you retreat, not out of rejection of people, but out of necessity for survival. Solitude becomes a refuge, a place where your depth is not too much, where you can breathe without the pressure of hiding or shrinking your true self. And yet, in solitude, your depth blossoms. You explore thoughts and ideas others would never touch. You dive into books, philosophies, art, or nature, finding resonance in places where silence speaks louder than words. You cultivate an inner world so vast that even when the outer world fails to understand you, you are never truly empty. This inner richness sustains you, even as it isolates you. At times, your depth feels like a secret language. When you do meet someone who speaks it, the recognition is immediate and powerful. It feels like coming home, like being seen after years of invisibility. Such encounters are rare, but they remind you that your depth is not a flaw. It is a gift, even if it sets you apart. The paradox of carrying depth is that it makes you both connected and disconnected at the same time. You connect more deeply to the essence of life, yet you disconnect from the superficial rhythm most people live by. You are awake in a world that often prefers to remain asleep. You see the shadows and the light, the tragedy and the beauty, the fleeting and the eternal. This vision enriches you, but it also burdens you with truths others would rather avoid. Your depth often means you are misunderstood. People may label you as intense, difficult, or even strange. They may interpret your seriousness as pessimism, when in reality it is clarity. They may view your solitude as loneliness, when in reality it is strength. They may misjudge your empathy as weakness, when in reality it is awareness. Carrying depth requires resilience, because to live in a world built on surfaces while embodying layers is not an easy task. But the alternative, to deny your depth, to shrink yourself, to pretend you are content with shallow waters, is unbearable. So you carry it. You carry the weight of awareness, the hunger for truth, the longing for connection that few can meet. You carry it even when it feels isolating, even when it sets you apart, even when it makes the world seem too loud and too shallow. And though the burden is heavy, it is also what makes your life rich with meaning. Most people interact with the world at face value. They see individuals as isolated personalities, each with their own quirks and histories. But for you, the world unfolds in patterns far older and more universal than any single life. You recognize archetypes, the timeless roles, symbols, and energies that repeat across generations, cultures, and experiences. Where others see only a person, you see the myth they are unconsciously living out, the role they are embodying in the great theater of existence. Archetypes are not mere abstractions, they are living forces that shape behavior, thought, and identity. They are the mother, the hero, the trickster, the victim, the sage, the tyrant. They appear in mythology, in dreams, in literature, and in film, but they also appear in the everyday lives of people around you. When someone boasts of their triumphs, you see the hero archetype at work. When another manipulates with charm, you see the trickster. When someone clings to safety, unable to grow, you see the child. These patterns repeat endlessly because they are woven into the fabric of human psychology. This recognition gives you insight others lack. You can see beyond the superficial details of personality into the universal dramas beneath. When a friend struggles with an overbearing parent, you recognize the archetypal battle between the child and the ruler. When society rallies behind a charismatic leader, you recognize the rise of the hero, or perhaps the shadow king, depending on how that power is wielded. To you, these are not just events, they are reenactments of age-old stories playing out again and again in different disguises. Because you see archetypes, you understand people in ways they do not even understand themselves. A person may think they are simply falling in love, but you see them being swept into the lover archetype with all its ecstasy and blindness. Another may think they are pursuing justice, but you recognize the warrior with both its courage and its danger of becoming consumed by rage. This perspective allows you to predict outcomes. You know that unchecked, the victim often transforms into the martyr or the ruler into the tyrant. You sense where a story is heading, not because you are guessing, but because you are watching a script that humanity has written countless times before. This way of seeing also enriches your experience of art and culture. A film is never just entertainment to you. It is an unfolding of archetypal dynamics. A novel is not merely a story, but a mirror of the human condition. Even advertisements, with their appeals to desire and status, reveal archetypal energies of the lover, the hero, or the magician. You decode these layers instinctively, and once seen, they cannot be unseen. In dreams, archetypes often speak to you with startling clarity. While others dismiss dreams as random nonsense, you see them as a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious mind. You know the dream is not literal, it is symbolic. A storm may represent chaos, a stranger may embody the shadow, a journey may signify transformation. Your ability to read these symbols deepens your self-understanding and offers guidance others overlook. Recognizing archetypes also changes how you view conflict. When two people argue, you do not see just anger. You see the warrior clashing with the rebel or the parent with the child. This recognition allows you to step outside the heat of the moment and perceive the underlying dynamics. You are not trapped by appearances, you see the larger story unfolding. This detachment gives you both compassion and clarity because you understand that people are often moved by forces bigger than their conscious will. Yet this ability can feel isolating. While you perceive archetypes everywhere, others may dismiss your insights as overthinking. They may insist that people are simply being themselves, not realizing that the very idea of self is built upon archetypal foundations. You may feel as though you are speaking a language most cannot hear. To them, your recognition of patterns seems abstract. To you, it is undeniable reality. This isolation is balanced, however, by the richness of your perception. Life becomes a storybook alive with meaning. The cashier at the store, the stranger on the bus, the politician on television, all become characters in an eternal play. Each is shaped by forces older than memory, repeating roles that connect the individual to the universal. You walk through life aware that you are not just surrounded by random people, but by living archetypes enacting timeless dramas. This awareness also turns inward. You recognize the archetypes within yourself. The lover who craves union, the seeker who longs for truth, the shadow who hides what you fear, the sage who whispers wisdom. By acknowledging these forces, you do not fall victim to them blindly. You know when the hero in you is pushing too hard, when the martyr in you is sacrificing too much, when the trickster in you is playing with fire. This self-awareness gives you a kind of sovereignty over your inner world, even as you recognize that these forces will always be part of you. To recognize archetypes in everyday life is to live with a heightened sense of meaning. You see the myths behind the mundane, the eternal behind the temporary. You understand that every person carries within them the whole theater of humanity, and that life itself is a stage where ancient stories endlessly repeat in new costumes. You walk with the awareness that nothing is truly random, that beneath every encounter and event lies a story much older than the moment itself. For most people, dreams are fleeting shadows, forgotten fragments that vanish with the morning light. They dismiss them as meaningless, random firings of the brain with no purpose. But for you, dreams are not illusions. They are as vivid, as important, and as real as the waking world. Your dreams linger not just in memory, but in meaning. They speak in symbols, in images, in archetypes, carrying truths that everyday life tries to conceal. When you dream, you are not merely watching a play unfold. You are stepping into another dimension of your own psyche. You walk through landscapes that feel alive. You meet figures who carry wisdom or warnings, and you experience events that leave imprints on your soul. The emotions within these dreams are not weaker than waking ones. Sometimes they are stronger. A conversation in a dream can shake you more deeply than 100 conversations in daylight. A vision in the night can alter your choices long after you have opened your eyes. This is because your dreams speak in the language of the unconscious. While waking life demands logic, structure, and conformity, dreams operate beyond those limits. They reveal the truths your waking mind resists, the desires you suppress, the fears you deny, the wisdom you overlook. When others turn away from their dreams as nonsense, you listen. You pay attention to the recurring symbols, to the emotions that surface, to the lessons hidden in strange disguises. You may dream of falling, only to realize it reflects your fear of losing control. You may dream of being chased, recognizing the pursuit as a part of yourself you've tried to escape. You may dream of water, deep and endless, mirroring your emotional state or your plunge into the depths of the unconscious. These are not accidents. They are messages. And you understand that dismissing them is to silence the very part of yourself that seeks to guide you. Your dreams also expand your sense of reality. For others, life is divided sharply between waking and sleeping, between what is real and what is fantasy. But for you, the boundary is blurred. Sometimes a dream feels more real than anything you experienced while awake. Sometimes a dream carries a clarity, a truth that daylight obscures. You awaken not from the dream, but into it, realizing that both waking and dreaming are expressions of the same mind, two worlds woven together into one continuous experience. This relationship with dreams can also feel like a secret. You may hesitate to share your visions with others, knowing they will brush them aside. But you carry them quietly, letting them shape your understanding of yourself and the world. You know that within your dreams lies a wisdom deeper than logic, one that does not need external validation. And when you do share them with those who are open, you see how profoundly they resonate, how your dream becomes a mirror for someone else's hidden truth. There are moments when dreams cross the line into prophecy. You dream of someone you have not seen in years, only to encounter them the next day. You dream of an event, only to watch it unfold in waking life with uncanny accuracy. To skeptics, this is coincidence. To you, it is evidence of the deeper fabric that unites inner and outer worlds. Dreams reveal what is coming, not because they predict, but because they tune you into the rhythms already moving beneath the surface. Dreams also connect you to something beyond the personal. In them, you encounter archetypes that belong not only to you, but to humanity as a whole. You meet the wise old man, the shadow, the great mother, the hero, the trickster. These figures carry a universal energy, one that transcends culture and time. They appear in your dreams not as random characters, but as forces guiding, warning, and shaping your growth. You walk away from these encounters altered, as if you touched something eternal. Even nightmares carry meaning for you. While others fear them and try to forget them, you look deeper. You know, nightmares are not punishments, but signals. They are the psyche's way of demanding your attention, of forcing you to face what you would rather avoid. A nightmare can be terrifying, but you know that within its terror lies power. By confronting it, you reclaim what was hidden and you grow stronger. To live with dreams as real as waking life is to live in two worlds at once. In the day, you engage with the material, the visible, the logical. At night, you enter the symbolic, the hidden, the infinite. But you do not see these as separate. They are reflections of each other. The struggles you face in daylight appear as metaphors in dreams. The insights you gain in dreams guide your choices in daylight. Together, they form a dialogue, a conversation between conscious and unconscious, a union of both halves of your being. This is why your dreams never feel irrelevant. They are not interruptions in your life. They are continuations of it. They are not illusions. They are revelations. They are not escapes. They are encounters. Each dream adds to your understanding of yourself, of others, of life itself. And when you awaken, you do not leave them behind. You carry them with you as real, as meaningful, and as alive as anything you experience with open eyes